Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is your host, Kushalmehra. So, the SCO summit, I think, is pretty much done and dusted. Prime Minister Modi has had his bilaterals over there, too. Um, uh, if you would have asked me 1 year ago, I would have called Sana, and the discussion would have been very different. But here we are. Donald Trump ने जो एक वो पाकिस्तानी था ना जिसने कहा था वक्त बदल दिए जज्बात बदल दिए तकदीरें बदल दी वो वाले हाल कर दिए हैं and we are where we are. But today's focus is going to be on the SCO summit of 2025, Prime Minister Modi's visit, India's road ahead, and the fundamental question, because I had asked this on social media and I had said, can India trust China? And Sana had tweeted me and written a big caps lock, Trumpian caps lock. Ka Sana ne likha tha no. So Sana, welcome. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. And it's such an honor to be on your podcast again. I remember our last conversation a couple of years ago. So I'm happy to be back and very happy to discuss what's happening with the US, India, China, and what happened in the SCO summit.
So Sana, we can't delineate what is going on in the SCO summit with what is going on with Trump. I understand that the India-China talks have been going on for a year, but is it fair to say that it has nothing to do the acceleration between the talks of India and China? Is it unfair or fair to say that the actual acceleration has been provided because of Donald Trump and his minions saying all sorts of erratic things?
Well, then I won't say that there is no connection at all. And even if we can't call it the primary factor, as you also mentioned, that the reset, I won't call it a reset actually, the tactical thaw and trying to normalize relationship, it has been going on for at least 1 year now, if not before, from at least India's side. So, but then what has happened between India and US and Trump attempt to isolate India and what all his MAGA campaign people have been saying about India, this has absolutely accelerated this thought, I would say. And I would also say that the optics have been very different primarily because of Trump. I think ground realities, I would say that perhaps not much has changed on that front, but optics has definitely changed, and that's primarily because of what Trump has been doing to India. But I won't say that just because there are differences, divergences in the US India relationship, it would lead to India becoming closer or India getting into cozying up to China, getting in China's orbit. So I don't. India has its own interest, and I think strategic autonomy is something. This is what we are seeing. This is at the front line right now, and this is at play. So I think India is working for its own interest. So it's not about the US, it's not about China. India is doing whatever is best in its interest. But of course, I would agree with you that Trump has played a very important role. Like I tweeted today the photo of three leaders, Russia, China, and India. And I said that a couple of months ago, Prime Minister Modi wouldn't have tweeted this from his own official Twitter account. But he did it. So I think Trump was a reason behind that. But I think we have to be practical about what is going to happen to India-China relationship, what are the prospects of the relationship, and what were the deliverables out of the visit and the SCO summit. So I think optics are very different from ground realities.
So let's go to the ground realities now. From what I understood, you follow this much more than I do, especially this region. I probably follow more North America. I live here, so I tend to follow this beat more. But
Yeah.
so, from what I understand, is there are 4 or 5 major issues between India and China. The border being the biggest one. That would be one. The trade imbalance between India and China being two. Taiwan definitely is an issue. China expects us to have a very different stand on Taiwan. We never agree with that. We always support, and obviously Tibet. Tibet is a major issue. It's a thaw in the Chinese thing where they believe, oh, how dare India say that? And India has always maintained that we're going to, this is their home and Dalai Lama will always be there and we will always support it. These are there from the Chinese, from our perspective, the Chinese and they stand on Kashmir, Aksai Chin, their relationship with Pakistan pretty much, Pakistan, I don't know वो किसका वैसल है अभी समझ में नहीं आता है, चीनियों का वैसल है कि अमेरिकियों का वैसल है. I think we need to figure out ये, मतलब पाकिस्तान सबसे शादी कर लेता है वो,
I
और
think
फिर
I
वो
call it थाली का बैगन, जहाँ मिल जाए जो मिल जाए.
हाँ मतलब वो, आई थिंक दैट इमेज ऑफ शहबाज शरीफ, ऐसे वो शहबाज शरीफ इन दैट फोटो वो स्टैंडिंग लाइक दैट ओल्ड इंडियन अंकल जी एंड पाकिस्तानी अंकल जी होते थे 1950s का, वो ऐसे खड़े रहकर फोटो खिंचाते थे. अगर पुरानी पिक्चर देखना,
Yeah,
हर
because
आदमी ऐसे खड़ा होता है.
he was expecting much more attention. वो अभी यूएस से इतना attention मिला देन चाइना से मिलता रहा है. But अभी of course when Prime Minister Modi is there, and वो now China is trying and Russia is trying to quote Prime Minister Modi and India, so पाकिस्तान पे इतना ध्यान तो जाएगा ही नहीं. तो मुझे लगता है कि उनका भी एक्सपेक्टेशन कुछ ज्यादा था उस एससीओ समिट से, जो पूरा नहीं हो पाया. सो आई थिंक द बॉडी लैंग्वेज, द एक्सप्रेशंस टेल यू एवरीथिंग अबाउट व्हाट पाकिस्तान इज थिंकिंग राइट नाउ.
But then how do we take the, forget everything, forget the noise, forget Donald Trump, forget Navarro has, Navarro is a beast of his own. इतने, वैसे एक क्वेश्चन बिफोर वी गेट इनटू चाइना, कभी सोचा था कि इंडिया के ऊपर इतना फोकस होगा जियो पोलिटिकली?
I think
इतना
Navarro has
सारे ट्वीट.
Indian Twitter and the attention he is getting and the engagement he is getting, कि बहुत likes और बहुत tweets आ रहे हैं, चाहे वो negative or positive हो, मुझे फर्क नहीं पड़ता. Let me just say it. So उसका तो ये केस है. मतलब this is such an unimaginable situation, and the things that has been said, it's just absurd.
So okay, so now let us look at it from the India China perspective. Now you clearly said no when I said can India trust China. Now let me refine my question a little more. By trust, maybe what I meant was, like, we can't ignore China. So I'll give you an example. Sameer Saran on the ANI podcast had said that
Mhm.
India has clear goals about going very fast towards being a $10 trillion economy. For India to become a $10 trillion economy, it's rather naive to assume. I mean, I'm paraphrasing what Sameer has said, to assume that we can just ignore China. And China was side में. We'll have to solve the China issue too. So now take your time and make your case of how, without compromising our personal interests, India's personal interests, do we go ahead with China now, considering that Donald Trump is at least here for 3 more years?
I think we don't really have any other choice, and I would agree with Samir in a way that it's China is our next door neighbor. We have huge trade imbalance with China, and we have huge massive economic relations ties with China. We do need China, and as China needs us as well. As and I don't think it's a one-way road. Or I think China. This is one of the things that what we are seeing out of SCO summit. There is a red carpet that has been rolled out for Prime Minister Modi. So that also tells us that China also needs India to not be in the US orbit, because this is what the perception or narrative has been from the Chinese side, that India is doing anything and everything because the US is asking India to do it. The effective counterbalance and everything, so India doesn't have its own agency, and this is what Chinese think. So I think this is what misrepresentation of India's foreign policy and interest have been from both the US and Chinese side. About engagement with China, I think India's policy has been that we have to engage with China where we could, but it would not be at the cost of our national interest. It would not be at the cost of our sovereignty. And I don't think there's a massive shift in our policy with respect to China. As in, of course, optics are different, as we have already talked about. The Chinese narrative is different, but I don't, as in the visit, and first of all, when we're talking about Prime Minister Modi's visit, I would like to first illustrate that what this visit is not. This visit is not a bilateral visit. This visit was a multilateral grouping participation, and this is what happened. Of course, for India also, China also used this opportunity to restart the dialogue at the highest level in either China or India. So it did provide an opportunity, but I won't really call it a bilateral visit. I won't really call it a monumental visit. It's a monumental development that the dialogue has restarted at the highest level, but not in terms of Prime Minister Modi going to China to meet President Xi Jinping. I think that's one of the major misconceptions that we have been promoting while talking about India-China relationship. Then apart from that, I would say that it's of course very logical, natural, specifically when we do not really have a credible collective effort to deter China. And we cannot also forget the entire discourse on decoupling, which became de-risking later, started from India. Of course, the entire economic origin issue that India is also facing from the Chinese side. Chinese side now in 2025 is saying that we will give you more access to our market. And now we are trying to lift export restrictions on rare earth mineral fertilizers. But then these are just on paper. These are not the things that have been translated into actions. So I'm not very sure, is China sincere enough to engage, cooperate with India, and China is not accepting India's red lines. Recently you said about something about Taiwan. This reinsertion of one China policy in Chinese readout, I thought that it was a kind of manipulation. It's just not about Taiwan. India just doesn't want to accept one China policy. One India policy is not accepted by the Chinese. So I think there is a broader perspective about the one China policy. So I did feel that the narrative that has been projected from the Chinese side is that the deterioration in the relationship was primarily because of India's attempts to counter China by aligning with the US, and second, that India is not accepting one China policy. But what about one India policy? What about assistance to Pakistan? And that has become more and more prominent now. That is visible. As in, I think that was one of the first times that Chinese was proud about supporting Pakistan against India. It was all about narrative building. So I feel that um, trusting is a long process, and I don't think that it is going to just be bridged in a couple of months. And I think what India is doing right now, India is engaging, but India is also verifying. And I think with China, it's not verify and then trust, it's verify, 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 and then trust. If at all we see there is a genuine effort from the Chinese side, but going by history, I don't see that happening.
So then how would we do this? Like, what are the steps we take with the Chinese? Because I'll give you examples. Like, I think the flights are being started again. The flights that was because of COVID. We had just stopped flights from China, and it is what it is. And secondly, obviously, बीच में किसी ने rumor फैला दिया था कि India has started TikTok. It has not. So um,
Not.
uh, yeah, we've not started, and I don't think we should start TikTok. We should not, like. So what bit of China do we build on? Because see, the thing is, everything we let the Chinese in, they build a backroom entry straight to snooping. So how, where and what? So obviously non-critical areas is the only area we can play with China. And so, like, have we kind of defined those non-critical areas? Are we clear about those non-critical areas, or have I missed out on something?
I think when has India been very clear about defining the set goals, especially when it comes to sensitive issues? This is India's policy. We might agree, we might not agree with it, but I don't think that there would be a document or a foreign secretary coming out with a press briefing saying that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is what we are going to do. Of course, the entire thing that we have to respect the peace and tranquility on the border issue. But then I do feel somewhere the border issue, I won't, if there is a standoff tomorrow, of course, I know that India will become firmer. And of course, you have to cater to the domestic audience as well. And people in India, they're not going to accept another major standoff at the border because people are now more aware about it. But apart from that, I do feel that, of course, economic considerations are important. And of course, I don't think that all the restrictions are going to be lifted with respect to the investment from the Chinese companies. TikTok, I'm not too sure, and even the direct flights have not been resumed as of yet. So, but I feel that this is what we're doing. We are, of course, starting with where we benefit more. For example, access to Chinese market and get more exports where we are facing dilemmas. But as I said, that this is happening. But are Chinese really going to go through what they have said? So when will it be translated into action? Then only we could say that, okay, fine, China is very genuine about quoting India. So that's not really happening yet. So I feel that where we could draw a line is, and I do feel that somewhere we are, I'm not saying that India has put the boundary dispute on the back burner. I don't see that. But of course, the talk about the boundary dispute and then this is a primary concern is somewhere lost in the discussions. And of course, it could be very intentional, but I do feel that if China could resolve border disputes with 12 out of 14 countries, so why not with India? And I was just thinking about it today, that how in the Chinese leadership discourse, there's this idea that the boundary dispute should not impact the other aspect of the relationship and should be left to the next generation of leadership. But when it comes to Taiwan, they have started saying that it has to be resolved as soon as possible. So it has to be resolved by Xi Jinping. So if Taiwan could be resolved with your co-issue, so why not the boundary dispute with India? It has been done before. If China could resolve with 12 countries, so India should be on the list of priority. But the entire idea is that it has to be kept alive so that there is a pressure tactic against India. India remains preoccupied, not just with the boundary dispute, but also with the China Pakistan nexus. We have been talking about two front threat theory, but now this threat theory has actually become very, very real. We have just seen it. So, as in, these are the issues. I think that these issues impact our security significantly. This is about, if not about survival, it is definitely going to impact our security calculus. So, how do we deal with it? So, I don't really see us trusting China anytime soon. And it's just, even if China gives greater access to its market, it's just one of the concessions. China has to start dealing with the main security issues, which it is not willing to. And I've been saying it, boundary dispute has been alive for over 7 decades. It is going to be alive for the next 7 decades. So how do we resolve this? How do we? I just feel that India really doesn't have a lot of uh, perhaps ideas to how to convince China, or China doesn't want to be convinced. Of course, that's the point. But I do feel that India cannot and should not leave the boundary dispute to be resolved later. And then, of course, it should not be about, because I think there was this also recognition that it is from Indian side, Indian leadership side, that this isn't just about differing perception of the line of actual control. So I don't know, how do you go back from there? Now, what is the status of the Indian establishment on the border dispute? So I think this is something that Indian government needs to perhaps explain to the public. But I think this is something that we really have to pay close attention to.
Fair enough. Then okay. Then how do we deal with this Chinese issue? The summary is in Hindi. We would say "दूध का जला छाछ भी फूक फूक के पीता है." Is our working relationship with China, but then if this is our working relationship with China and Trump has put 50% tariffs on India, listen, for good or bad, like I am someone who actually does believe in the Indian foreign policy stand, which has been very consistent right from Nehru till Narendra Modi, where we are not in any camp. We are only in one camp, that is Camp India. हम हमारा उल्लू सीधा करते हैं और हाँ ठीक है, it is the toughest road ahead. It takes more time. People call us selfish, whatever. People can, we've been called all sorts of things, including nowadays Navarro. So he comes up with such one-liners that even I start cracking up. क्या होता है
Yeah,
भाई?
Brahmin caste system, as in, how do you get caste
ब्राह्मण,
system?
अरे अभी मानोगे नहीं तो आई लिटरली नाउ 10 minutes ago ट्रम्प ने एक और लंबा हमारे ऊपर लिख दिया है
Achha, I
ट्रूथ
haven't
सोशल पे.
said it yet.
हाँ मतलब वेट आई विल पुट
I
इट
was
अप.
expecting it. So yeah, and he's one
Yeah.
day late actually.
नहीं नहीं he Trump was I think Trump was having major FOMO of यार ये तो SCO summit हो गया, मेरा तो नाम भी नहीं
Maybe
आया, ऐसे थोड़ी ना
he
होता
was
है.
expecting, instead of Prime Minister Modi, he was expecting himself between Russian president and Chinese president.
Yeah, so Trump is like that classroom fellow who's like, अरे मेरे को तो बुलाया नहीं तूने पार्टी में. So this is Trump. He just wrote this. It's like
Yeah.
what few people understand is that we do very little business with India, but they do a tremendous amount of business with us. In other words, they sell us massive amount of goods, their biggest client, but we sell them very little. Until now, a totally one-sided relationship, and it has been for many decades. The reason is that India has charged us until now such high tariffs, the most of any country, that our businesses are unable to sell into India. It has been a totally one-sided disaster. Also, India buys most of its oil and military products from Russia, very little from the US. अभी ये basically मुद्दे पे आ रहा है.
No, so of course, because this entire SCO, a lot of leaders there have talked about policies to counter Trump's tariffs. So of course, he has to come up with something like this statement. But
You
then
like
tariffs are not about economic relations; it's hardly about trade.
Yeah, yeah. So the next line is even better. They have now offered to cut their tariffs to nothing, but it's getting late. They should have done so years ago. Just some simple facts for people. See, basically, considering, see, I've followed Trump when he used to go on WWE and fight with Vince McMahon. I just find him to be a funny character. That's all. I never liked him. I
But
was
he
the
didn't write,
one.
thank you for your attention.
Yes, yeah, he would have. He should tell me. Thank you for your attention. I've been paying a lot of attention. So this is, if I was reading what Trump is saying, he's basically saying, I think this is his way of saying, अबे सालो मैं तो तुमको मेरे से खरीदने को बोल रहा था, तुम तो जज्बाती हो गए.
And मुझे छोड़ दिया, पार्टी में नहीं बुलाया.
So I think, look, from day one, it was about them wanting to sell more arms and ammunition to India. The Russian oil bit, they don't care. Honestly, they don't care about the Russian oil bit. It's all rubbish. I think in the beginning, and I got a lot of flack for it. I actually did think Trump had a case कि India के tariffs बहुत high थे. India should have reduced its tariff. And India did reduce its tariff. Wherever India could, India has reduced its tariff. Not now. 3 महीने पहले ही हम चाचा को बोल चुके हैं कि भाई, we're reducing our tariffs here. But for Trump to assume that we're going to open up our entire agriculture and dairy sector, no Indian politician is going to do it. Forget Narendra Modi, Rahul Gandhi will not do it. Nobody can do it because वो election हार जाएगा भाई. कोई भी election नहीं हारने वाला है.
और क्या, especially farmers is such a tricky issue in India.
Yeah, so that's the thing. But now considering Trump falling, doing this, do you rate, like, okay, now Russia is an important bit in this, the entire SCO summit. So now my follow-up question to you is, forget the imagery. ठीक है, वो हर लीडर को muscle flexing करनी होती है, signaling करनी होती है फोटो से. But what do you make of this SCO summit? Like, what did India get out of it?
I think when India joined SCO in 2017-18, it was a very different scenario. First of all, India wanted to join the SCO because it wanted to reach out to Central Asia in a multilateral setting. And I think that was one of the best ways to do it. Secondly, if you look at SCO's objective, one of the major objectives is to fight terrorism, extremism, separatism. Of course, it's more favorable to China than any other country. But then India being a victim of state-sponsored terrorism, and that too from a regional country, it made sense for India to be a part of an organization where there is an organ that specifically deals with terrorism. RATS is there. But then, and SCO is also one of the few organizations that has been able to define what terrorism is. So perhaps there was this hope for India that a regional response is needed to counter terrorism, but there have been multiple exercises, peace exercises that have been between China, Russia, Central Asian countries, which are targeted at so-called Uyghur separatism, extremism, and terrorism. But why are they not conducting such exercises where India is a victim? Why don't they do it in Balochistan? Why don't they do it in POK? Why they are not really consulting with India? So I feel that it is falling short somewhere, especially with respect to its major objective. But then also when India was joining, Russia was pushing for India's membership. At the same time, China started pushing for Pakistan membership, so that it becomes a talk shop, it becomes diluted. And as in, of course, for the past 4 or 5 years, China was already able to achieve whatever it aimed to achieve with Shanghai 5 and Shanghai Cooperation Organization way earlier. So now it was of no use to China. So that's why it thought that perhaps it will be easier if it becomes diluted and a lot more diverse member states come and join the SCO. But 2025 summit is very different, and I think they are definitely taking advantage of the SCO summit and projecting it as a non-Western organization, which is a voice of the global South. And as in they're projecting as if the SCO is the next big multilateral grouping. So I feel that, of course, it's important, and one of the ways how we could see significance is that there are a number of Southeast Asian countries that are also participating in this summit. So perhaps a lot of countries are finding alternatives where they are not hearing about Ukraine-Russia war and where their interest in the regional issues are being discussed. And I think this is where the West has been falling short of. They are concerned about their own interests, their own wars and conflict, but they're not concerned about the issues that the regional countries are dealing with. So I feel that this is where China is able to project that we are the new leader of the regional changing regional order as well as eventually global order. So I feel that SCO is important for a number of reasons. I'm not sure what India has been able to achieve as of now, but of course, India is presenting an alternative voice within the SCO. India being a part of it does a lot of benefit to at least the West. And it's India's policy. Our Foreign Minister S. Shankar wrote in his book a couple of years ago that we have to move in all directions. So if we just look at our foreign policy from that perspective, from multi-alignment, SCO fits in our approach. But of course, I think we cannot really overestimate the relevance of the SCO. There is hardly any cohesion. There's hardly any convergence of interest. India still doesn't endorse the Belt and Road Initiative. For the very first time, after 2-3 months, we are able to make countries condemn the terror attack in Pahalgam. But then, of course, there is no pinpointing to why and what is the root cause of that. So I feel that we are getting some advantage, some benefit, but I feel that it's limited. So I think we have to be very realistic, practical with respect to analyzing the relevance of SCO for not just the member countries, not just for India, but also regionally and as the organization as a whole.
So wow, the one thing I think India was able to do was once again block Azerbaijan's membership in the SCO. इस बार भी करा दिया हमने. बोला तुम नहीं आओगे.
Yeah, as in, I'm sure India doesn't want it to be an anti-India organization.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just like people were much wondering ki kya. I was like, yes, they are trying to, and once again we have blocked it. I couldn't follow. Like, was the external affairs minister not feeling well? That's why he couldn't make it. Like, was that the reason given?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there must be something urgent on his health issue. Otherwise, he would have been
Yeah,
there.
yeah. It was kind of surprising. Now, let's focus from China to the Russia bit. What do you
Mhm.
make of this entire? I think Trump's Truth Social post is entirely obsessed with Modi and Vladimir Putin in SCO. Like, I think Modi and Putin live rent free in his head right now, and he's like, "अरे इतना लंबा post लिख दिया उसने." So
I
what
think
do
he
you?
likes Putin more than Modi right now.
Trump likes dictators.
Yeah,
Trump has a thing for dictators. He likes that North Korean fellow also. He always likes them. He likes Xi Jinping. I think he somewhere wishes he would be one of them with the
dictator, so
United
that he
States.
doesn't have to leave the office.
Yeah, so poor guy. He must be having such nightmares like, अरे मेरे तो 3 साल ही रह गए, मेरे को तो जाना पड़ेगा. यहाँ पे तो ये दो टर्म वाला रूल है. Then he must be jealous of Modi. चीटिंग करता है तुम. तुम्हारे यहाँ रूल बनाओ, ये तुम नहीं आ सकते.
Yeah, I think हो सकता है ये एक रीजन हो कि इतना नेगेटिव कि पब्लिक भी अगेंस्ट हो जाए फिर.
Hmm.
बट
So,
इंडिया को समझते नहीं है ना ये लोग. And then I
like,
think it is making him more popular than anything.
yeah, and you know what the funny thing is? What do you make about these entire things like India's relationship with Russia? Now, let us talk about this because it Russia is also there, part of the SCO, so we cannot ignore that, right? They're part of the SCO. Now, how do we study India's relationship with Russia, right? See, I believe Russia should not have invaded Ukraine. This is my personal view. I've always maintained that. I still maintain it. But the point is, Russia has always been the closest ally of India. These are facts. You cannot change the facts on the ground just because some American feels offended by it, right?
Bilkul. No, I think as you rightly mentioned, and I would also say that this is my personal view, of course, that Russia should not have invaded Ukraine and war wherever it's happening, Middle East or Europe or even South Asia. It's just not, it shouldn't be happening. But I feel that when we talk about India Russia, this is a traditional partnership. And as the proponents of the relationship say, that Russia has been there for India when no one else was there. And then Russia is the most important, one of the at least most defensive partners for India. And also the thing is, it's not that India didn't try to diversify away from Russia. India did try, but then is US giving the support that it needs to counter threats that are very much present in its vicinity, in its periphery. So, and you know what has happened? A lot of people who have been opposed to growing India-US relations, they have been just saying that we told you that it is the entire thing that it's uh, कि दुश्मन होना यूएस का ज्यादा अच्छा है दोस्त होने से. So I think this is something that they are just reiterating, that you cannot be um, a friend with the US, and you cannot really trust and rely on the US. So I feel that, for example, I'll give you two examples that how India was trying to diversify away, or at least keeping the sensitivities of the West in mind. First, India Russia summit नहीं हुई है इतने साल से, and this is primarily because of the optics and the photos, and India didn't really want to upset the US primarily. And then even today, the RIS, the trilateral between Russia, India, and China, it hasn't been resumed or revived. It was a good opportunity. Trump did give an opportunity to India to revive it, but India didn't do it. They didn't have a trilateral on the sidelines of the SCO, and it would have been easily justifiable. And that actually shows us that India is still willing to manage relationship with the US. India still consider US as an important strategic partner. So I think it is happening, but within the limit. So I think it's, of course, a classic case of strategic alignment, that please don't tell us what to do. We know what is in our best interest, and we would only work for our interests. We are not going to do what we are asking us to do. And this is what China believes about India-US relationship. That's actually not true. India has its own agency. And of course, India, the phrase that this is not the era of war came from Prime Minister Modi when he was sitting opposite Putin. And then who else could do that? Even Trump, who just met him in Alaska, even he couldn't say it. So I felt that some things that India has been doing have gone underappreciated. And it's just that they think that perhaps it's easier to bully India, and that India's policy does not align with us, and India does not have an alliance partnership with us. As in, I don't know why West is unable to accept that India works on the basis of issue-based cooperation and on the basis of multi-alignment, and India does value its relationship with the entire West. And I think we have ample evidences to support this assertion. But I just feel that, of course, India is not going to stop engaging with Russia just because the US wants India to do that. And I feel that the lack of respect and lack of appreciation for India's own agency and policies is just not there. Not in the West, not in the US. Perhaps Europe, I would say that they still try to understand that India has its own interest and it would work for its own self. But the US under Trump is a totally, totally different case altogether.
Then, as far as the Russia bit is concerned, now, uh, eventually, even from the arms purchase point of view, now, yes, we have historically bought a lot of Russian weaponry, a lot of ammo, and that continues, and there has been a insight in India, as we slowly try to develop our own indigenous technology. And I think some of it was displayed during Operation Sindoor with Akash and bits and bobs over there. But look, we have to accept that we are nowhere at the pace that we should be as far as India is concerned. So that means we're going to be a net importer of arms and ammo for the near future. Yes, I know the defense minister and the honorable prime minister have said हम हमारी इंजन बनाएंगे, हम ये करेंगे, हम वो करेंगे. भाई जब करेंगे वो करेंगे. And it's not like आज मैंने बंद कर दिया, मैं किसी से लेना नहीं है. There is a supply chain management, there is a flow that needs to be weaned off considering that. And now listen, we can't, Trump wants us to buy his product. That is very clear. Basically, Abhi, he has come up with the quiet part out loud now after the SCO. He's like, Sale, mere se khareed. That's what he wants. We cannot buy a lot of American oil is because it's expensive. And for them to remain profitable, because they have that shale oil technology, which increases the baseline cost. So the technology of getting oil out itself is expensive. In all of this, how do we manage? Like, okay, let's say we're going to go. Listen, we're going to buy some arms and ammunition from America. The tariffs are going to go before people think ये कभी जाने नहीं. Obviously वो जाने वाले हैं. वो आज नहीं तो कल जाएंगे. वो कब जाएंगे? It's just a matter of time. Modi ji and Trump will talk and they will find some, some weird. The irony is when all hell broke loose, I was literally in Kananaskis. मैं जब था ये Trump और Modi की जो call हुई थी, I was sitting there. I was like, "अरे सत्यानाश शुरू वहां से like I was like सत्यानाश शुरू होने वाला है अभी." But how do we manage this bit? Like Russia really has been with us, where nobody can forget what they did for us in 71 and many times later on. They have, and the biggest thing is they're a non-interfering person. They don't tell us, they don't chide us, they don't taunt us about Brahmin, this, that. Like the Americans always chide. So how do we manage the two? Because India is very clearly, like Jaishankar said, we are not anti-Western, we are just non-Western.
Mm.
Russia gets it. Why doesn't America get it?
Uh, I think first I'll talk about the buying weapons from the US. ऐसा नहीं है कि we haven't tried. As in, we have some logistic agreements and everything. First of all, delivery समय पर नहीं होती है. And if I give you an example of Taiwan, Taiwan has already paid, but the delivery is not there. Time पर नहीं होता है. So there is no reliability, and also there is this lack of trust from the US side कि वो technology देंगे और हम रशिया को दे देंगे. So I feel कि अगर key strategic partner बोलते हैं तो as in words and actions do not really match when it comes to the US India partnership, defense partnership, I would say. And joint military exercises, yuddha abhyas and everything, it is all fine, but then where are the substantial efforts? Deliverables कहाँ है? तो मुझे लगता है कि इंडिया से ज्यादा वो तो यूएस पर हमें फोकस करना चाहिए and blame करना चाहिए that this is the US problem. And then we are I'm pretty sure even if it's expensive, we are trying to diversify. It's just not that we are relying on Russia. We have France, of course, and you talked about the indigenous stuff that we are building. And BrahMos also, we have kind of modified to make it our own now in a lot of ways. So I feel that it's not that India is not trying. बट वो ताली दोनों हाथों से बजती है एंड फिर दोनों को स्टेप लेने पड़ेंगे ऐसा नहीं है दैट आई थिंक व्हाट ट्रम्प इज एक्सपेक्टिंग इज फॉर इंडिया टू जस्ट कम एंड be an obedient student. I don't know what else could I say, but this is how it feels right now. So I feel that and what India could do in such a situation, I think India is doing what it could, and I think this is the best strategy for us. Of course, with respect to China, I do have some divergences from what India is doing right now, but I feel that um, with in terms of broader foreign policy, I think we have to keep pursuing strategic autonomy. We have to be neutral in a lot of conflicts, wars that are going on, but of course we could play a greater and larger role because we do have aspirations to become a great power. And if we do not really get out of our cautious behavior and the silent policy diplomacy, so I think we will this is working to some extent, but we also have to bear the brunt of disinformation, then letting people believe what they want to believe. So I feel that we have to be perhaps a little more vocal about our interests somewhere so that countries know. And then I think Jaishankar has done a great job in telling the West what India's policies are, and India needs to have its own agency. I think it worked for a bit, but I think we need to change a little bit in terms of how better we could convey our policies, our interest, and our concerns. And also, I would say that in terms of Quad, it was India has always been cautious. I'm not talking about other countries also had problems with what Quad was and is, but then I do believe that making it or prominently turning it into a security platform would have served India's interest only, specifically when India has serious concerns in the Indian Ocean. Of course, India's maritime capabilities are remarkably improving, growing. India is heavily investing in developing its maritime capabilities, but we do need other partners. We are cooperating with Japan, we are cooperating with the Philippines, but it's not that we do not need countries from the West. And we do have some shared interest and perhaps some convergence in policies and approaches as well. As in, I would say that even today, they are a better partner to us than China. This is all fine. This show of leaders coming together and showing that we are the voice of Global South, it's all right. But then I do not really see it becoming a pattern or a reality. So how do we manage our interest in this scenario when we cannot trust China and the West is somewhat hostile towards India? I think what we have to do, we have to just keep quiet and weather the storm. And as you rightly mentioned, that the tariffs are going to go away, and the relation between India and the US would be normalized. I think it would not take 5 years like India and China relations. It will be normalized much before then. I think, but then I do believe that the trust has gone, and it will be very difficult for the Indian establishment to tell the domestic audience why we are becoming West oriented, because that was the case before. We were definitely West. If we were not very pro, if we were not pro or anti West, we were at least West leaning. We were trying to understand what their approaches, what their concerns are. We were trying to collaborate where we could, and in most of the places we were trying to collaborate. So I do believe that perhaps we just have to weather the storm, and our diplomats are working and doing their job. They are absolutely doing the crisis management with the US. They're trying to normalize relations with China. So I feel that this is what it is. India is everyone's friend, but then when you are growing, when you are rising, you know that you will also have people who would not like it and who will raise their voices against it. So India is definitely doing something right. India is on the right path. And of course, it took us a lot of time, many more years than expected to reach where we are, and still miles to go before we sleep. And we cannot be complacent. We have to keep working towards that. We have to definitely work on our economy. We have to work on our defense capabilities. We are doing it, but perhaps we could be a little more faster on that aspect. But I feel that India is absolutely on the right track in terms of foreign policy, even though I don't agree with its China policy in entirety. But strategic autonomy, issue-based coalition, and multi-alignment, all these principles have served India's interest. And I do believe that if India is on the same path, similar path, I think we'll just be fine.
What do you make of China's comment about we should not bow down to a bully? China भी कम उंगली नहीं करता है.
मतलब I don't think that this is for India. वो I think it's mostly for China. And it's like, देखो मेरे साथ ऐसा हुआ है, तुम्हारे साथ भी ऐसा हो रहा है, so we have to work together. But where is the common ground for us to work together? मतलब a friend is my enemy, as enemy's enemy is my friend, is something that is not going to work for India-China relations. As in, that worked for India US, but that's not going to work for India China. So my point is, where's the common ground? Where is the tacit understanding of India's concerns? And then look at India. India actually considered Japan a very important partner, and this is the only reason, perhaps one of the main reasons, that why Prime Minister Modi did not attend the so-called victory parade. So it doesn't want to jeopardize its ties with an old important strategic partner. So why is China not doing something like this? And in fact, when Wang Yi visited India, on the Chinese internet, there was a thing that we cannot afford to lose Pakistan. And this is why Wang Yi is going to Pakistan after going to India, to reassure them that, we are all-weather friends and iron-clad brothers. So I think in Pakistan, no matter what, is India's red line. And China it has not even only supporting Pakistan. I think China is the third, not even silent, I can't even call it a silent party anymore, is the third party in the conflict between India and Pakistan. Pakistan can't do anything without China. As in, so that confidence that we saw after Operation Sindoor was not of Pakistan, was of China. So we are very clear about it. So I think unless and until the Pakistan issue is there, the CPEC is there, the border issue is there, and the huge imbalance is there, these are just the main issues. There are other issues as well. So I don't think we could actually say that India, China are friends. वो हिंदी चीनी भाई भाई, मुझे नहीं लगता कि अब वो कभी वापस आएगा.
नहीं, वो तो कभी था भी नहीं. वो आना तो छोड़ दो, आने भी नहीं वाला. तो वो जो पहले ही नहीं था, तो अब कहाँ होगा? But ठीक है, see, this is like I always say, foreign policy, people find it very crass. I say is like, you have one night stand, some 2-3 month relationships. Everything is transactional in foreign policy, and it's just that India is very open and brazen about it. Everybody else pretends to be in camps while they are open. They're behind the scenes. They are also like this. Like America talks about freedom and democracy. Their closest allies are dictators, and
Yeah.
then they go around chiding everyone.
No, but also this entire thing, value-based foreign policy, friendship, alliances, but going after friends and partners, as in, it's not that India is the only country that is being targeted. Uh, Trump is harsh on our friends and being friendly with countries such as Pakistan and China, as in that doesn't make sense at all. From from foreign policy perspective, international relations perspective, that is just suicidal.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the long run, as far as I'm concerned, there are no good answers. You are always, there is no perfect deal in any real world scenario. You're never going to get whatever you want from one country or the other. You're going to make some concessions. It's not like the Indians only do it. I think even the Chinese have to do it.
Mhm.
And people need to find ways out of face saving. As far as India and Pakistan is concerned, I think it is what it is. And yes, uh, I don't know how much of the shellacking that Pakistan got in Operation Sindoor. I know. I mean, वो आसिम मुनीर तो अपने आप को और 5 तमगे लगा के दे देगा भाई। भाई वो बेशरम लोग हैं, उनके पास कुछ है ही नहीं। मतलब एक कमाल है। मतलब मेरे को कई बार हंसी आती है, हम लोग शांति से बैठते हैं, मतलब मैंने बोला ज्यादा दुनिया, मेरी नानी 1920s में लाहौर में रहती, तो मैं बोला बाप रे क्या है, ये हम लोग थे। मैं एक बार सुशांत सरीन को बोल रहा था, बोला ये हम लोग थे, ये लोग कैसे हैं, हम लोग क्यों नहीं है ऐसे।
हम तो दिल्ली से ही हैं, हम दिल्ली में ही रहते थे हमेशा। मैं नहीं बोलूंगी।
सुशांत मेरे को हमेशा याद दिलाता था, बोलता साले तू पाकिस्तान से था, मेरी सारी पीढ़ियां अमृतसर से थी।
मैं दिल्ली से, हम दिल्ली से हैं।
अरे मेरे को विश्वास नहीं था, बोले क्या लोग है इस ऐसी, मतलब एक तो पूरा पिटा, उसके बाद खुद की बेल्ट लेके आया और बोला आई एम द चैंपियन।
खुद को प्रमोट कर दिया, कोई अपना बिजनेस शुरू करना चाहिए।
इट्स अनबिलीवेबल। तो वो तो है ही बेशरम, तो उनके साथ तो कोई उम्मीद है नहीं। बट post, do you think what we did in Operation Sindoor actually that led to a lot of our problems with both America and China? Because देखो उनके पास अमेरिकन इक्विपमेंट भी थी, चाइनीज इक्विपमेंट भी है, and we have Russian and Indian ka combination with a bit of French and Israeli inputs. That's the larger combo that we have, and they have this Chinese American. And I think they never expected us to do what we did, और हमने तो उनके मतलब बैंड ही सुपड़ा ही साफ कर दिया उनका, वो आज भी खड्डों को ठीक कर रहे हैं अपने. So do you think that has actually change the tone and tenor in both China and America, and just like no ये Indians तो हद से ज्यादा fast बढ़ रहे हैं and we need to fix them? That would be my last question.
It's a very valid question. First of all, last में what you said कि India बहुत आगे बढ़ रहा है, so we have to stop it. That's definitely one of the rationales. But first, let me talk about the US. अगर मैं ये बोलूँ कि इंडिया ने ऐसा किया और इसलिए हो रहा है, तो मैं विक्टिम ब्लेमिंग तो नहीं करूंगी बिल्कुल भी यहाँ पे, बिकॉज इंडिया हैज बीन अ विक्टिम ऑफ state sponsored terrorism. There is no doubt about that. And if the US, being a friend, cannot understand and stand with India, then perhaps the US has to rethink about it. And also, हमारी policy बहुत ही clear है इसको लेकर, that it's a bilateral issue. If you cannot support us, we are not going to accept your interference or your ceasefire mediation. We haven't asked you to do it. We will deal with the issues on our own. तो मुझे समझ नहीं आता कि वो टांग अड़ाने की आवश्यकता क्या ही थी इसमें, कि वो इंडिया का एक इशू था। अगर वो सपोर्ट नहीं कर सकते तो चुप रहो, न्यूट्रल रहो, बट नहीं वो करना है क्योंकि वो एंटायर आइडिया कि मुझे नोबेल पीस प्राइज मिलेगा, उसकी वजह से मैंने यहाँ पे ये किया तो मैं यहाँ पे करूंगा। इतनी बड़ी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट जो सालों साल से 7 डिकेड से चल रही है, तो मैं इसको खत्म कर दूंगा, तो ऐसे तो नहीं होगा। वो इतनी कॉम्प्लिकेटेड हिस्ट्री है कि जब वो हम ही रिजॉल्व नहीं कर पा रहे तो वो कैसे करेगा। तो मुझे लगता है कि यूएस ने गलत किया आकर की टांग अड़ा दी एंड ये सब कर दिया। एंड आई थिंक इंडिया रियली फेल्ट बिट्रेड, नॉट जस्ट बाय दैट the response from the US and hosting Asim Munir in White House. And then how could you do it? How could a friend do it to a friend? It's just unimaginable. This is what, and then of course in international relations there are no friends and permanent friends and enemies, there are permanent interests. But then I think India did consider US a very very important partner. So I think that was not respected from the US side. और रही चाइना की बात, I think in a way ये silver lining ये है that we have seen that China is much more visible than it was ever before. चाइना के साथ रिश्ते तो हमेशा ही, अगर मैं बोलूं कि अच्छे नहीं थे और या ज्यादा खराब नहीं थे, तो एटलीस्ट वो सस्पेशन तो हमेशा से था, पाकिस्तान को लेके तो हमेशा ही है। तो मुझे नहीं लगता that with Pakistan China we could have expected a different scenario. So I think whatever India did was all right, was fine, and we just worked for our own interest. If our friends and neighbors and partners, जो भी Xi Jinping ने भी बोला India को, that we should see each other as partners. Um, I don't know what is the definition of being partners and friends then.
Yeah, with the Chinese, it's always complicated. We don't understand what they say. They don't understand what we say. We just work with what we have. वही करते रहो. And on the American bit, I agree with you. They told us don't buy Iranian oil. हमारे लिए, please, pretty please. We
Yeah,
honored it.
we all
Like people forget, हम 3 साल पहले रशिया से तेल भी नहीं लेते थे, 1 लीटर भी नहीं लिया था, पकौड़े भी नहीं तले हमने किसी रशियन तेल में. हमको कोई लेना देना नहीं था. We were
बिल्कुल.
buying Iranian oil. Then the Americans, उसके पहले I think Americans told us please Venezuela से मत लो. We honored the Americans then.
प्यार से बोल लें तो कर देंगे सब कुछ.
हाँ. Then
Okay.
Biden came and told us यार थोड़ा रशिया से तेल ले ले. हमने अमेरिका की सुनी, रशिया से तेल लिया. अरे भाई अभी अभी बंद कर दे. अरे मतलब बोलना नहीं चाहिए भाई, तुम्हारे पिताजी के नौकर हैं क्या हम? कि बार बार बोलोगे हम करते रहेंगे. ये कितनी बार करेंगे भैया, तुम क्या कर रहे हो? There has to be a seema. And I'm glad that the Indian government is not responding to the Trump tantrums like Nawar. Like, you know what, you raised a very vital point कि ये जो 1908 में sanctions लगे थे, then 99 में Clinton भारत आए. And we started building. Then George Bush did. And let me give credit to Dr. Manmohan Singh also. Like, I am very open about who I vote for, but I want to give credit to Dr. Manmohan Singh. He built on it.
Yeah.
Yes. Then Modi ji built on it. Modi ji worked with Trump's first administration, then Biden administration, before that the Obama administration. We built on it. Everything gone for what? Like, pagal ho kya tum?
Well, this is what I would say, that I don't think it has gone. Everything has gone. Of course, there's a dent, there's a setback. But I think sooner or later, India-US relations will be on track. But let's hope for the best, which is whatever works for both Indian and the US interest.
Just one, see, मैं सिर्फ मौके का फायदा उठा रहा हूँ. What is happening with India and Taiwan? Just short. I mean, I can't let you go without asking you that question.
No, thank you for asking me this question, because I think there's a lot of misconception about India and Taiwan. And जैसे ही कुछ India China में होता है, one of the first thing that comes up कि Taiwan के साथ India का नहीं होगा relationship. But I think what not a lot of people realize, that there is already a dehyphenation between India, Taiwan, and India-China relations. And even recently, when China tried to insert this Taiwan as a part of China thing in the Chinese readout, India was very clear that, if you get investment from the Taiwanese, then we could also get investment from the Taiwanese. And, this is a mandate of existing unofficial relationship, that India and Taiwan cooperate on the economic front, technology front, as well as cultural, educational ties. So nothing has changed on that front. I think India has been very mindful of how it wants to engage Taiwan. And it's not that we are talking about having a role in a Taiwan contingency or something, which of course we don't know, because no country talks about it. So of course, and then we know that it would not be in any country's interest if China invades Taiwan. And there is a need, this is my personal opinion, there is a need for countries to deter China from invading Taiwan. And there needs to be, and then we talk about agency of India. So I think we also need to talk about agency of Taiwan and self-determination of Taiwanese people. But from a purely realist perspective, I would say that India is just working for its own interest. And Taiwan was never a part of India's adherence to one China policy. There is not even a single statement since the 1950s that mentions that India is accepting, recognizing, acknowledging, whatever terminology is there, as Taiwan a part of China. So I feel that India has always left some strategic ambiguity in terms of its own adherence to one China policy. It was always about Tibet and Xinjiang, which were already kind of annexed into China, but not Taiwan. And India is very clear that, and in fact, Prime Minister Modi has said it multiple times. Jaishankar has said it multiple times, that Taiwan is an important key strategic and not strategic, economic partner and technology partner. So I feel that there's a vocal a recognition of that, acknowledgement of that. And this is what I think China has to respect. It's not that even if we are going and getting investment or semiconductor assistance from Taiwan, China comes and says you cannot do it. So where are interests? We are building our own in a semiconductor mission, and we need assistance from countries that have expertise in this area. Is China going to give us semiconductor? I don't think so. So I feel that it's very important that India maintains its policy. There needs to be continuity with respect to India-Taiwan relations, and there needs to be a direct flight between India and Taiwan. There needs to be economic, physical, and cultural connectivity, technological connectivity between India and Taiwan. And I am sure this is the 30th year of India-Taiwan unofficial relationship establishment of ITA and TECC. And I feel that we need to stop thinking. I don't think that Indian establishment really thinks about Taiwan when it comes to economic technological relationship, but I think we need to work further on this. We need to advance this core. I don't think we are going to get semiconductor assistance or investment from countries maybe other than Japan and Taiwan. So we should be very clear about this. I do feel, I do believe, and I do see that India is clear about this distinction. And there is already hyphenation. So no matter what China says, no matter what the projection of narrative is, there has been continuity from, I would say that 2021, and it's still the same, the policy. India considers Taiwan a very important economic and technology partner.
Fair enough, Sana. As always, pleasure talking to you, and thank you for taking some time out to chat with us. Any new projects, anything new coming up that you want to tell everyone before we wrap up?
It's the same. My column on print, Eye on China. Do read that column where I cover a Chinese discourse on issues relating China. And this week I'm covering. My column just came out, which was on how Chinese strategic community viewed Prime Minister Modi's visit and India-China relationship. And then I'm working on my book on India-Taiwan, which has been in the pipeline for years, and I don't know, but it should be out next year, hopefully. And apart from that, just yeah, my writings on China and Taiwan, and keep
All right.
listening to people.
Thank you. So, guys, Sana's X handle is there in the description of the podcast. If you've not followed Sana, go right now on X and follow her. She is probably one of the sanest voices we have in geopolitics in India. So, do follow her. And you guys know the drill. If you want to support the Cārvāka podcast, please consider joining the membership program of the Cārvāka podcast and any other kind of support. Everything is mentioned in the description of the podcast. I'll see you guys next time. I don't know what Trump is going to tweet next, so it's going to be very entertaining. Anyways, chalo, take care. Bye bye. Have a good